I now invite Dr. KVS Gopalakrishnan, President of the PS Educational Society, to deliver the welcome address and introduce the chief guest to us.
Dr. D.P. Agarwal, former Chairman of UPSC, Mr. M.R. Sivaraman, former Revenue Secretary, Government of India, Mr. K.S. Sripati, former Chief Secretary, Tamil Nadu, and distinguished invitees, Mr. Dr. Nataraj, former Chairman of Tamil Nadu Public Service Commission, Mr. K.B. Shankaran from Railways, who is an old student of this PS High School, Sri Sriram, Professor Ranganathan, Mr. Ramchandran, retired IAS, who has been the motivator behind this program of having instituted the Kanchi Mahaswami Coaching Center, Academy for Civil Service, as an initiative by His Holiness Swami Vijayendra Saraswati Swami of Kanchi Shankara Math. This has just got launched, and then the students have started having their classes from 1st of June, that is yesterday. The initiative was to encourage youth and students from the school itself to get used to the process of appearing for competitive examinations and to ensure that Tamil Nadu gets a better representation in the All India examinations. That is the reason people who had been selected, Mr. Nataraj, who is from the Service Commission of Tamil Nadu, who was the chairman, Mr. Sripati, the Chief Secretary, Mr. Raman, IAS, Mr. Sriram, he was from the Railways, Professor Ranganathan, who is a maths professor from Vivekananda College, Mr. Ramchandran is also a retired IAS officer. We thought the minds should work together to ensure that the students are motivated to take the examinations with more fearlessness, and then how to crack the examination very well. That is our intention. I am sure this process will be carried on with the same spirit throughout. In this connection, we were very happy to hear that Dr. D.P. Agarwal, former chairman of UPSC, was coming to Kanchipuram on a visit to the college there, and then he readily agreed at the instance of the Swami that he will address the students on his way to airport. That is why we are under the constraint of time. The whole program will be for 1 hour. And to introduce Dr. D.P. Agarwal, having graduated in engineering in Aligarh Muslim University in 1970, he completed his MTech in IIT Delhi in 1972, and he was awarded doctorate from IIT in 1978. Also, he was decorated by the IIT as a distinguished alumnus in 2012. Having joined in the academic career as a lecturer in IIT in 1975, he became an assistant professor in 1980, and he became a full professor in 1990. Teaching and research have been his passion for 35 years, and he has guided in the research for PhD 22 students, and for the technical research 38, and for MBA he had guided 35 students. He has had about 180 research publications and research papers, nearly 20. Associated with many consultant projects and also collaborative projects adding to 32, and he has published 3 books, and he has been the coordinator for 4 books. He was invited to be the member of the UPSC in 2003, which he continued till 2008, and he was appointed as the chairman of the UPSC in 2008, and he superannuated on in 2014. He has been instrumental in various reforms in the conduct of UPSC exams, so as to ensure zero tolerance on errors and complete unbiasedness under his guidance. Use of IT, information technology, in processing of applications and other administrative issues relating to the functioning of the day-to-day administration of the UPSC was taken care of, and it was a major task. Also, a single window system for processing proposals for departmental promotion committees, and also All India Service Induction, lateral entries, regular recruitment for services, and also other recruitments has been the domain with which he was associated. And he also initiated for the first time the UPSC Commission lecture on public service and governance, and it was started in his time to underscore the importance of effective, efficient and robust administrative structure for the country. He was the founder director of Atal Bihari Vajpayee Indian Institute of Information Technology and Management in Gwalior from 1998 to 2003. All of you may know that Atal Bihari Vajpayee was associated with Gwalior. He was the chairman of Central Regional Committee of AICTE and was also associated with Planning Commission of working groups in the Planning Commission in various capacity. I think it is a fortune that we have with us Sri Agarwal, who is going to talk to our students as to what is the future for every youth here. I call upon Sri Agarwal to deliver his talk and to be followed by felicitation of this initiative by Mr. M.R. Sivaram, because all this we will conclude in about 1 hour. That is what we are saying.
Very distinguished persons on the dais, very, very eminent senior civil servants. I know that. Don't care to prefer the dais. The school administration, young aspirants to become future civil servants, by the grace of His Holiness, that I have this opportunity to be with you all. I must thank the school authorities and friends here to believe that I could add value to each of you who wish to tread a path of preparation for civil services. Since I have been in education for a very long time, and after my demitting office, I have been in touch with almost many institutions. And I have traveled to talk to students, to look at their future based on their own capabilities, their own choice, their own aspirations. While India has grown so much in terms of economic development, many opportunities have evolved. In city of Chennai, Bangalore, Hyderabad are more of an IT city, and of course Chennai is well known being an industrial area. But when the question was asked at number of places, when I interact with audience like you, I was in Madhya Pradesh, place called Sagar. It's a central university. Hall was full, 2,800 students. And the question put to them, what is your first choice? Not too long ago, it was just 7-8 years ago. And the response was, they want to be in the government job. While there's so much of talk about IT development, 62% contribution by service sector, the desire among students, the young students, to take up government job in sole reason being that you could contribute to the nation and to the society. Sometimes people think so strange. Many people believe this is an easy road. It is not. Even if you look at the UPSC, firstly being constitutional body, all of you are aware, Constitution embedded it. Reasons are obvious that the framers of Constitution of India, wanted that the manpower to man the government position are people of high integrity, and it can only happen if they are selected without bias, only on merit. There's been a lot of talk here and there, but my experience of 11 years in commission, and even previous to that, many of my stalwarts are here. They can all vouch for you that UPSC only and only selects based on your merit. Neither you are biased being citizen of this part of the country or that part country, nor you are biased based on religion and faith and belief, nor you are biased by being a rural background and the urban background. 4 years ago, a young boy taking Telugu as a language, being a Telugu school teacher, became number 3 in the merit list. 2 years ago, I met a girl from a Dalit family in Kerala, the first ever girl to come into civil service. The aspirations are important. If you scan through the number of people today appear, and you must have been told as an introduction that every year for a single exam called civil service exam, 12 lakh people apply. Application cost is hardly any. For girls it is free, for reserved categories free. And it so happens that 50% people do actually appear. So friends, those who want to start your preparation journey, 2 things are must. Number 1, that you should know you are competing against 5 lakh aspirants from all over the country, from different variety of schools, different cultures and different subjects. Is that fine? The second thing you must understand, that it's a little longer path. Number of vacancy per year at one time has come down to 500, but when I entered as chairman, I have ensured that they reach to 1200, which has now come back to 1000. But the silver lining is that the IAS are taken 200, while in 1 year they were only 53. IPS are also taken about 200. So the top 4 or 5 services, the IAS, the IPS, the Foreign Service, the Custom Excise and the other, constitute almost more than 50% of the vacancies. It's a silver lining. Unlike previous years, where IAS used to be 50, 60, 70, IPS should be about 100, Custom Excise people be 120, so roughly about 40 out of a small number. So that's a silver lining. But what is more important is, I can say because of my interaction with n number of students and candidates, both in the chairman as a commission as well as leader, that many of us are not clear why do we want to become a civil servant. When it was surveyed that what is the motivation for you to come to civil service, there is a whole lot of confusion. This confusion arose from the composition of the aspirants. Many of you, sir, would probably believe that 90% of aspirants come from lower middle class people, both in cities and the poor people in the villages. The answer is simple. People still believe the civil service runs the country. They can do many things, and many of them have done very well, including some of people sitting here. So they are their aspirations. They have heard your names, and they want to be like you. There are candidates who come from their own clan, their own children, grandchildren. Many of them are not coming because they believe the drudgery and the hard work the grandparents and the parents have put as a civil engineer, as a civil servant. Many believe that once you are selected to civil servant, there is practically cakewalk life. And I think all of them can vouch here, the life becomes difficult the day when you come into civil service. So it is more important, what is your motivation to come? It's also seen that in India, being India, parents live their dreams into their children. 60% of candidates have been pushed by parents to appear in civil service. These are parents who missed the bus themselves. These are the parents who are more aspirational and they believe through civil service we can do. They are parents who have seen in their hinterland that how powerful could be a policeman and how powerful could be a revenue person. And they deal with revenue of land and the rural. So this is the composition of the crowd. And since it is the composition of the crowd, if you are pushed by your parents to come here, your own heart and mind is not there. So one thing which the group should check, talking to you individually, what has been their motivation to come? If you have a motivation to come because you want to make a difference, in the journey being long, sometime in the first attempt, sometime in second attempt, sometime even on 10th and 11th attempts. Days are gone when 50% selection will occur in the first attempt. Today it's about 15 to 18%. It's also true that second and third attempt almost completes the requirement. That means by third attempt, 80% people have settled. So it is only those 20%, mainly either in reserve categories, general categories have gone to 32 now, age. OBC has gone in age to 34, and for reserve people, there is no age limit but the number of attempts allowed, which therefore by the age of 40 you can do. So until as you are motivated, until as you want to put work very hard, if you want to come in the first, second and third attempt, and I also tell you there is nothing wrong to come on 10th attempt, but that is what you lose in the process. Selection process does not differentiate you whether you are a first timer or the last timer. But what you lose to be a first timer, what you gain being a first timer at the age of 21, you become either Shripatiji or something one who become either the cabinet secretary or the chief secretary. If you start your life at the age of 30, it is unlikely that you become a secretary in the government of India. And after all, why do you come to government of India or state government? To be in a position where you can make a bigger difference. You can make a policy change. You can do something for people at large, supporting the political power by your own thoughts in your deeds. So clarity of mind is an essential component. So number one, your motivation and your commitment to it. We have seen many of would come in the first attempt. Why they are coming in the first attempt? They want to know how this exam is about. And the days are gone, I remember when I was very young, many candidates will appear in competitive exam only to take an experience. Now today this is not required. Why is it not required? Because everything what UPSC does in this exam is already known to public. All question papers are available, or answer sheets are available. You could see your answer sheets. And the freedom which I contributed, when sirs and other people were interviewed, they were interviewed in English. Am I right, sir? Then there is a change came. The change was, you can interview in English if you write a paper in English. But if you write a paper in Hindi, you could interview in Hindi. But then I made a change when I was chairman. What is the rationale for somebody to be discussing orally in a selection process? There are prelim exam, there are main exam, both of them are written. A common similar paper where each of you are attempting. The particular language are permitted. Initially used to be English, became bilingual. And now most of the languages of the constitution are permitted. So this permission to allow language not to become a barrier, to get the most motivated and most honest person into selection has been an effort which I attempted. Many times this issue has been talked about, sir, I made all those changes. Are they good or bad? And these changes were made after 30 years. And my thesis is very simple. We all have lived our past. All of you are young people at the age group of 21, 22, 23, 24, 35 years down the line. How the world is going to be, half of us can't predict. Being an engineer, I couldn't predict that they would be in IT, which will rule the world, and they would be in AI and ML. We also did not see in the country that service sector would contribute 60% to GDP. Sir is here, Revenue Secretary. He could vouch for it, that what were the sources of revenues. People talked industry, which has come down to as narrow as 70. There are a number of effects which I don't want to talk here. All I want to bring to you and to senior people here, that the aspiration in the youth is very much different than what were the aspirations in us. The way they learn in the university, in the college, in the school is so much different than what used to. Some of us would pride to read a newspaper. Some of us pride to read a book. Many of these young students, you can ask if they read a daily newspaper. I was 8 years old when my father asked me to continue to read a vernacular language paper. And the value addition being with a newspaper makes you live with the country and the world. For the country and the world today, for the youth is in the palm. But the difficulty with palm is, you want to see one information and there are thousand sundry information. There is no authenticity what is being written. So you prepare civil service, and if you look at your mobile and find out what is the population of this country, you can find a variety of information which may not be what the government of India is saying. Now that is a danger. You must be correct and truthful to the correct information. So therefore, learning through good text, the proven books is the requirement. So I was proposing in academy, please expose them to be the correct books, the right books, which deal the subjects in a manner which gives them a clarity, which them improve their understanding. Today there are a lot of material is produced through coaching centers. They do a wonderful job. I am not against. And why it has become so popular, I can also explain that. As you understood what I was saying, over the year, this examination in 3 parts. Many of you would remember, at that time there were separate papers for IAS and separate paper for others. But today, after the Kothari Commission reforms in 70s, we have one common exam. And the topper has all the choices. But to attain that, the examination process is preliminary exam, which had 2 papers at one time, even have 2 papers now. Paper 1, at that time used to call General Studies 1, and the second paper used to be called General Studies 2, or an optional subject. So the option in prelim has been removed. And why was it removed? There used to be a lot of courses that in prelim exam where the rejection is very high, there is a differential paper setting. How do I guarantee the paper in mathematics is the same standard of Sanskrit paper? So when I looked at very carefully and talked to a very large number of young bureaucrats, they all said, sir, have this paper 1 and 2 to be common to all. And when you are playing on a common wicket, same wicket teams are playing, if you perform, then you have no complaint. Rules of the game is common, exam is common, papers are common. So, in common paper, you have to excel. So what we have done, there is no option in the prelim. 2 papers, general studies. Paper 2 is loosely called as CSET. It is nothing but the attitude and aptitude. Why do you want to become civil servant? As a civil servant, you have to talk to people, understand, comprehend. So it judges your comprehension. No service, no government officer work without numbers. Whatever sector you are, numbers are must. How many people are beneficiary? What is the money to be given for this purpose? What is the kind of growth possibility? Is agriculture growing? If I say agriculture growing, by saying the agriculture growing will not help me until I say agriculture has grown by 2% compared to the last percent. So this appreciation of numbers for policy making and decision making is a required virtue among a candidate. So what we did, that we brought in the second paper some issues which deals with understanding of number, manipulation of number, and understanding what are the statistical relationships. It is neither a trigonometric geometry nor it is algebra. It is a typical number manipulation to understand how the numbers are done. It is also not a typically high regression process which is required for statistical work. So please understand, second paper consists of comprehension, number manipulation, knowing bit of English. Because English is a compulsory subject in the mains. You have to qualify that paper. When I was chair, when I looked at data and found that many people neglect the optional subjects, compulsory subjects, saying that they are only compulsory to be qualified. You would be surprised to note that 10% student failed 1 year in a compulsory paper in English because they left it. So even papers which are compulsory, where it is only pass marks, time has to be devoted. Then when I talk to students, why this happened 10%? They were students, their parents came to me. They were from convent schools, mind you. They were not village schools. And the students from convent failed because when I talked to, the father wouldn't believe, then I called the son and talked to him. Sir, I did not prepare because I knew I could do it. So this casual approach in competitive examination is not accepted even in the compulsory subject as a qualifier. Have I made the point clear? So everything has to be done. Then the second paper also, there was a great demand, sir. By a lot of people are saying that the moment the candidate joined, the academy said, their motives are very different. The foreign secretary, before Jaishankarji was interacting with me, and he said, sir, their motives are completely out of order. They come to civil service only for doing corruption. This was almost their comment. And please believe me. I sat down, talked to my commission, and I said, what can be done? And I could zero down to talk of a word called ethical standards. People said, kya hoga? Even if you have a paper on ethical standard, will they change? My answer simply is that on a well, even a normal cotton cord make a dent. So if we continuously talk to people, after all, when Swamiji is talking to people, he is only trying to tell people that quality life, the holistic world, is something beyond the vice. So something good things are said. After all, why do I pray and we had the invocation? Why did we have? There was no need to have invocation of Goddess Saraswati. We did. Just to say that there are people, there are systems, if we continuously exposed, our personality change. And I have noticed, and I also ensured, that ethics is not shrouded by religion. Human values and ethics are never ever shrouded by the religion. Religion only promotes it in a positive direction if it does. If it does not do in a positive direction, it's not required. It should also not be said that what was the ethical standard in the ancient India, all ethics standards are gone now. Its presumption is completely wrong. These virtues are in society. Society still believe in the human developments. So this component was added into it. I only said that ethical decisions taken by bureaucrats of this country, they must be read, and based on that questions should be asked. I didn't say the textbook. After all of you in your life, when you are serving, I am sure each of you have done at least 4 or 5 very highly ethical standard decisions. Though every time you've done as per the rule, but many of those rule decisions were ethical in nature. The dilemmas, the choice to be made out of the little kitty. So they were important. The first paper still consists the same: knowing India, knowing world, knowing Indian culture, knowing Indian economy, polity and society. So it's a vast area. And that's where some of the role of academies has come. As I said, when I was a student in university was a very different area. You will have magazines, you will go to the library, you will look at the books, sit down on the big table, 100 students sitting, reading a book, it's gone. You go to the university, there are scholars coming in talking to students, these things are gone. Everybody now comes it that if you become BA, you must get this job. Remember, I was an engineering graduate. I did not have single speaker to say, what would be your salary? Sir, this is a big change. 20 years, in last 20 years, the demand by each parent when a student is set for the education is that what salary I will get. So the meaning of education have changed. The commitment which required in civil service came through that education which allowed him to participate in almost every activity. And there would be a teacher, one of them is sitting here, who would motivate number of students to say why truthfulness is important. The definitions of truthfulness today have changed. It's no more what you taught and I taught. So how do I bring those classical thought in a present era? So for any academy, it's a big challenge. How to educate these students who have been learning in a new environment. Today you don't know what is required. That all teacher must give their notes before the teaching starts. And he will only come and teach that part. So even textbooks are not required. Teacher go and copy, come on a PPT and teach. PPT you all know. How many have been educated through PPT? Almost all, isn't it? All teachers must have taught PPT. Then what they do? This is one of the biggest unethical practice. They take a PPT from any source and say it is my PPT. So when teacher tell them this is not my material, he is not honestly communicating with students. Look, I have read these books from these books I have got it, you can also read from there. So the dialogue between the two of a relationship, that there is nothing hidden between teacher and the student, the virtue transfer does not occur. Though I am not against IT. You remember, I brought IT in civil services to facilitate me to process application. There used to be time when I became chairman, application bundles will not open for months. Some percent of the application lost and destroyed. Today, because of IT, I get my application done the next day. So technology enabler. You can learn technology, you can use technology, but technology is a technology education. It is not an education to which civil servants must do. So that depth required, quality books required are different. In the university today, faculty does not spend time with them. They appear in one exam, get certain percentage of marks. So throughout the day they are not learning. There are good shops outside, market, a lot of malls is open. And if you notice the crowd, it's only we and my young kids. So my advice, please teach them the way they can accept. And always keep in mind your own son, your grandson. There's a new vocabulary which has come. I let my son do whatever he wants. Some of you are sitting here. Somebody who's younger age, whose children going to be, they even say, jo bhi partner, whatever partner in life they want to decide, let them decide. So at one time those things were virtues, are no more virtues, because they are not universal truth. In my time when I was young, and if I had a question to my father, the answer would come, believe me, what I am saying is true, because my hairs become white with experience. So this whole questioning by young mind to the increased. In UPSC papers, today want to look at, in also the interview, want to look at the questioning mind. First, for example, in the first paper, they are not all textbook questions. They are questions based on what has happened in the last 1 year in the public domain. And they try to then examine that does this event have an impact on what and what. Which is not textbook. So today the preliminary papers are not only subject alone, but knowing your surrounding. So more reading, good magazines, good newspaper, and vast reading. But difficulty in prelim is that second paper is only a qualifier. Many students find this very difficult, because even simple numbers they cannot manipulate. And they say, "To mathematics hai." It's not true. So, and then when you make a merit out of 200 marks, the closeness among the candidate is so less, so close they are. Decimal differences in their marks to get those 15,000 out of 5 lakhs. And the questions in the prelim are negative marks. So even if you have done 30 questions correctly, you have done 10 questions wrongly, you don't land with 30 marks, you land with 27 marks. So the buzzword is, do your paper, all questions correct, whatever you can. The motto is not to attempt all questions. That's not the motto. If you do that, when you find out 30% questions are wrong, you lose very heavily. I can also mention those who come from other categories. The competition there is much more tougher. People always believe that it's a competition much more higher in the upper castes. But actually the competition much higher there. Because they are the current young learners. While people in the upper strata of society, Their parents have learned, they have learned. So they have some approach through which they are learning, and their numbers are also not growing. The people who come to competition, their numbers have substantially has not grown, because many of such candidates have gone to simpler option, better options in their opinion. There is also a record that people whose children were born in 80s and 85, many of them sent for education abroad. It happens typically from South. But if you notice in middle class, such people are very few. Secondly, they have never been very close to what you call the power. So all the people who come from the hinterland in the background, they are ready to do it. They have their own limitations. Their comprehension, sometimes presentations, their vocabulary, they are limited. So therefore I would say today, concentrate on prelim. Do not leave any optional subject unattended. Center can only guide you for 3 hours. If center guides you 8 hours, it shouldn't be done. Because it is the candidate's own learning is more important. So you guide him for 3 hours, let him work for 4 hours, you give him enough work that when he comes the next day, he has really worked hard. This exam is not by learning from others. This exam is learning by self. Because only when you learn by yourself, you realize what your weaknesses. You come to the class, teacher teaching, you are making notes. This was also done in your BA. So unless you make your own notes in your own language, the difficulty in this exam is that it has to be your own language. It has to be your own view. It has to be your own conclusion. It has to be your own idea. And you have to assimilate it. So read newspaper, read magazine, 3 hours of time here, discussion, maybe another 2 hours. But 4 hours in the evening, by the time you come next, are a must. I can close today here. Once again when I'll come, I'll talk to second paper. I commit, sir, I have committed to Swamiji that I'll come 3 times in a year to this center. Thank you very much.
Which recruits at least 2,000 people every year. Their salaries are better than the IAS. Their living conditions are even better. And you die only once in your life. And not every 1.5 million people in the Indian Armed Forces die every day. So you have to convince your parents. There are a lot of girls now who are joining the fighter force. The person who is going to be one of the first astronauts from India, from where is he? Can anyone tell me? He is from Mylapore. Group Captain Krishna. He is going to be one of the 4 astronauts who is going to be in our own. So therefore, please do not omit the other areas open to you. India is a very large country. We are growing at 8%, 8.2%. So every field has got its own opportunities. If you step out of the road, there is no guarantee that you are not going to be hit by a car, as it happened in Pune. So therefore, the armed forces are also there for you to work, and it's not very easy to get into the armed forces also. It's probably more difficult than in the civil services. So there are a lot of opportunities open to you. Please consider all these opportunities. But my own experience is from Tamil Nadu, very few people join the armed forces now. Once upon a time, almost all the armed forces had generals, commanders-in-chief, all from South India. But now I don't find anybody. So there is other opportunities also open to you. I won't take much of your time because there may be other opportunity to speak to you. And you can talk to all these people, very experienced people, Sripati, all these people are available. Shankaran from the railway service, who have been in charge of more than 1 million people under him. There are a lot of people like that. Mr. Natarajan here, who has battled a lot of people here in Tamil Nadu itself. So you have got a lot of opportunities to discuss with a variety of people, and I'm sure that this institution or the people who are organizing this course for you will provide you with a lot of opportunities. So I will come back to you sometime later. Thank you very much.